That's a floppy box. Put that there.
All right. Welcome back to Off the Rails. We have Cameron and Ryan with us today. As you all know, or should be aware, we did have Mayhem at the Mill this past weekend. And I think it was a success. I know I enjoyed it. I only heard mostly good things overall. So definitely glad to hear that. But today I thought it would be interesting just to go over how it was programmed. About a week or 2 weeks ago now, we did kind of discuss about the Fittest of the Coast online qualifier and their workouts and kind of what we thought about them and you know, the likes and dislikes of them. So I thought it would be interesting just to go over how, I guess, kind of the three of us programmed this year's Mayhem at the Mill, being the team of four. So just to start, I'll let kind of Cameron take over. Just because he did kind of come in with kind of the bones or the skeleton of the workout. So how did you kind of just get those in order to start?
Well, typically I'll, throughout the year, kind of start thinking of these, or at least once we decide the team structure, then it'll kind of be like, ooh, like, you know, did that work out? Was that good or not? Obviously, we don't do a lot of 4-person team workouts, but the feeling of a workout can be like, yeah, that hurt, or I could take that and make it a synchro thing or something like that. With teams of 4, it is kind of harder to, I guess, program and test it in class. We don't really, again, I think it would be pretty obvious if we were like, on a Saturday, teams of 4, we're going to try this. So we're trying not to like give, for most people, our members also don't know the workouts as well. But really from there, it's just, okay, how do we program a normal competition, right? We got to test certain things. So it's like, okay, let's come up with those ideas of like, okay, we need to go heavy. We also want to go, you know, push, pull, like with the legs. So we need to pull something from the ground. We want to squat below parallel. We want to push and pull with the arms, right? We want to press and we want to pull, and we have gymnastics. And usually I want to try to get people upside down and test that capacity. And then from there, it's like, okay, short duration and long duration. So then it's like, okay, let's mark those things. And then really it comes down to picking like usually a workout and then kind of building around that. And so I came to y'all with 2 sets of workouts, or two competitions, if you will. One had, which I really liked, acid bath waterfall. And so immediately after we did acid bath, that acid bath, whatever it was. The rad acid athletics. That's what it was. Not acid bath, rad acid athletics. I was like, man, that sucked. And that would be kind of cool as a waterfall. And so I put that in my notes. And then we had talked about like a wall ball workout idea. And then literally Reaction Arena kind of did what we had like talked about. So I scrapped that. And then we had recently done some rope climb workout, which kind of gave me an idea with the rope climbs. And then I really liked the first year we did the teams of 4 run, burpee over bar, and it was synchro deadlifts. So I'd kind of already written that down. So that's kind of where that first workout came from. So I guess that was kind of where it started. And then as I sat down and looked at some of those, I just kind of built some things around it, around some of those of like, okay, if we're going to run and burpee and then clean, you know, then it was like, okay, what's the next thing? So I guess we can just go from there. If like kind of what I came in with, I don't even know if I remember all of it at this point. And then what we did. So we all got in this room and I got the whiteboard out and basically wrote 4 workouts over here, 4 workouts over here. And then we had the floater wad. So the floater wad, I kind of knew I wanted to do tire flips because we had teased about it. And then I knew we had the tires. And then with the tire flips, it's like, okay, team of 4, like what other odd object things do we have, right? And so then it was just like, okay, cool, a sandbag carry, a yoke, and then we knew we had the sled. We just didn't know exactly what we wanted to do with those things quite yet, but we knew those would be like heavier carries and or pushes or pulls, right? And so we kind of like use that as like a base thing as well. So yeah, that kind of sat there. And then, God, I don't remember the exact combinations of things. But we had like a grippy interval. One was with synchro tota bar, and the buy-in was biking, I think.
I don't remember now.
Or one had two partners had a dead hang, while two partners did, I think it was hang snatches, was the original 2-2-3 interval. And then the other one was jump rope and dumbbell. Was it dumbbell? I don't know.
I know we had gotten that one down to the point where there was like going to be two partners like dead hanging on the rig, two partners doing something with a dumbbell, and then you switch, and two partners had to just like dead hold the dumbbells while the other partners did synchro something on the rig.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Maybe that's what it was. It was that you had to hold the farmer's carry hold because we knew the rig might get a little crowded. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to like go back and think about exactly where we started. But we could probably, so in a general sense, I came up with a lot of workouts, put them all on a whiteboard, and then us three sat down and said, okay, we like this one, or let's tweak this a little bit. And then once we kind of locked one in, it was like, okay, that tests a certain thing. Now this one tests a certain thing. Okay, let's look at over here. Ooh, those kind of have some of these same components. So how could we switch these or put these things in? And we were in here for what, 2 hours probably with that, I think.
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take 2 hours of just kind of tweaking some things. And those still weren't even the final results of some of these, right? And so that's another piece we can kind of talk about during this podcast as well, of like the constant, which we can kind of get away with because we don't announce it ahead of time, right? So really the night before we can switch things if we want, and no one really knows except for us, right? Which helps, probably hurts in some ways because it's like, okay, we got to make sure we have the equipment for it, or the schedule at that point's already made. But in the sense of like weather changes or I don't know, like I don't know what we would need to change the night before, but we could, other than a weather thing. So
I mean, we kind of did with workout too. Mm-hmm. It was about, what was that, Thursday night or Friday,
yeah.
where it was just going to be that straight wall walk once your team got there, and then Ryan came up with the idea of that 5-minute repeat.
So I think that was that's Sunday when we tested the floater and locked in.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of how we wanted to do that. So yeah, so we had the general idea of like, so we locked in 5 workouts, right? And then, so let's just go through the 5 workouts, right? Why did we choose, or like workout 1, right? I think just general consensus with let's just start there. Let's go back a step. What were y'all's thoughts on the workouts and how it played out? So, personally, I liked that even though it was a lot of interval style, I felt like there was always, everyone had to work to get things done. And you had no idea where other people in your heat were. So if it was like a 3 rounds for time, say the first workout, you would know those teams are well ahead of us. Now I don't need to try that hard. But because it was kind of this interval, like we all start together and we're all kind of moving together, you didn't know how many cleans a team had done or whatever. So it was like you just had to try as hard as you could to make sure that you were putting in your best effort, and not being like, oh, we're getting our ass kicked, I'm just going to stop and save my energy for later, right? Which I think was kind of it was a cool part of it too, of like you couldn't over strategize in the middle of the workout. You just had to go hard. So I like that aspect of most of the workouts, of you couldn't tell exactly where other teams were necessarily, except for the last workout of the day. But even then with intermediate, like there's so many heats, it's like we just got to get as far through this as we can. Mm-hmm. So what did y'all think about just the general, like the workouts? Did you like them all, how they played out? Any general consensus there?
Yeah, I mean, I liked how they played out. I liked how you really couldn't hide anybody throughout the workouts. To your point, like Tommy had to go run and had to do burpees.
Right.
On the dumbbell step-ups, everyone had to do that implement. The only one you could really hide, which I didn't fully expect when we kind of wrote it or programmed it, was the second one. I thought most teams would get all 4 to the wall walks, but still you had to have strategy there. And then I guess that 4th one really was the only one you could kind of hide. For instance, Wolf, Joy, and Joe, like Joy and Claire, did not do gymnastics. Wolf and Joe did everything while they handled the barbell. But it comes back to like they played to their strengths and did strategy of it. I also liked that when people saw the workouts, from what I heard, they thought they were going to be easy. And then by the end of it, all of them were just dying after every workout. So that was definitely a good thing to see. And then just the last piece of feedback that I heard was it was the first from someone in the gym. It was the first competition where they actually felt like they were trying hard all day and like felt sore afterwards. So it was also a nice thing to hear there.
Yeah. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but the hard part about programming a team of 4 is like you can't hide somebody, but then also you don't want to make just everything be synchro all the time, because then it kind of, you're almost doing an individual comp just at the speed of your partner. So it's like you want to have the fun piece of being able to play to your strengths, but also not be able to hide that person until something benefits them either.
Yeah. And I think too, with programming for 4 people, like you also don't want people to get done and like have like half the team feel like they didn't do anything. Right. So it's like, okay, how do we make everyone work out? But also like, yeah, it's not always everything synchro. And so I guess we could talk about that, which I didn't. So I knew too, when I was originally coming up with ideas of like, okay, I want to try to pair the males and pair the females. I also potentially want to try to make males and females pair up at some point. I also want to make all 4 do something together at some point. And then we also want to make sure that each individual gets to shine at some point, right? And so that's also like when you're programming for at least teams of 3 and 4, like, okay, how can we force people to pair up certain ways? Versus in a 2-person, you usually don't have, they either synchro or they don't. But sometimes you can alternate rounds too. So there's a lot of like, so maybe that's where I started the programming, was like, okay, let's have, which I think I would put on the board, like this one's going to be all synchro. This one's going to be these 2 and these 2 do this or buy in or whatever. And then these 2 and these 2. And we kind of got rid of some of those, but for the most part, we had some all 4 synchro, 2 pairs had to do something. And then individual, you got to touch some things. So yeah, I heard a lot of the same stuff too, of like, oh, that looked like that was way harder than what it looked like on paper or whatever. And I think that goes back to the not knowing where you're at. And like, yeah, someone in the beginning of the day was like, this is a lot of interval stuff or whatever, or what, like kind of like max reps. Like there wasn't a lot of for time workouts, but it was like, yeah, because like you're just going to have to work hard to like get your score. Right. And so I think that's why those workouts maybe became as hard as they were, because you couldn't be like, oh, all we need to do, like Wolf and Claire and then won the box step up by like 15 reps. And it's like, that's a lot of energy that you put into something that you didn't necessarily have to, but you didn't know either. So like you just went hard. So I like that those played out that way, but maybe we go through each workout now and just kind of talk about them in that sense.
Start workout 1.
Yeah. So we made everyone run and we made everyone do burpees, right? To get the cardio in pre-weightlifting. But I feel like we chose pretty solid weights for each division because we weren't having a max. So that kind of became our heavy workout of, can you handle these weights? And the idea there too was, maybe not everyone could handle those weights, but at least 1 or maybe 2 people could. So you still get a score. I think, I thought about the fact of like, if we made it a 3-round workout or whatever, and you had to do a certain amount of reps, well, what about those people that maybe couldn't touch these weights, right? And when we start programming that way, then you start to get scared of like, well, we want people to do it. Well, then if we make it too light, we make it too easy, right? So I'd like the idea that everyone had to work to get to the barbell part, but then it was like, hey, if you have the capacity or you could do it, now you can help your team get a good score. And then the other part of that too, with the interval, it was kind of a safety component, which we made sure of. We kind of programmed it before, but I liked the idea that we could start them outside, right? We didn't have this cluster inside trying to go outside down the ramp and then around the corner. It was like, cool, we have a minute. You went as hard as you could. Now let's go back outside where it's safe to start, and then you can run as hard as you want. So those pieces. And then judging wise, with the run, it was like, okay, do we make them hold something and run together? Well, we talked about, the next thing's all synchro, so it really doesn't matter if they hold something or not because they all have to wait till they get back, right? Synchro burpees over the bar, easy one, chest, lateral or not, was the kind of the call, like, do we do bar facing or lateral? And that really came down to space. And then for the cleans, we discussed squat cleans or not. But then we started talking about judging, right? And it was like, okay, are we going to have all the judges be good enough to tell if that was actually a squat or not? So we took the squat part out, and we were like, it can be any clean because it's easier to say, hey, ground to shoulder and stand up, which most people can see. So I feel like that kind of helped us decide on those things. Any pieces y'all want to add to that?
I think one of the hard things that I heard a little bit of feedback on is when we released the standards to help people choose their division the wisest. I believe the RX cycling female weight was like 105, which would have been like, again, too easy of a barbell for a heavy clean, but some people couldn't do the 155 that it was at. And I think having them understand of like, only one partner, like you all have to work in order to get the partner who can clean it to that weight. But I didn't see any team that no partners could do it.
Yeah. And I would consider cycling the last workout, like high volume, right? Versus those numbers for the first workout, I think should have been, which we programmed in that higher end, maybe not a 1 rep max, but like a 80+% type of weight, right? Where it's like, I can do a couple. Like I could have done RX, but I wouldn't have been like slinging 225 around, right? But I would have been able to do a couple reps each round, which wasn't a winning score, but it's doable. And so I think that's too, like when we're announcing things, it's like, okay, the wording is cycle, not is this my 1 rep max weight? And I think that's where people get messed up in standards as well, of like, toe to bar. Well, I can do one. Well, no one's going to program one toe to bar in a comp, right? Like you should have the ability to do more than what's there in that standard list, or at least big sets of. So I feel like that's more of like a thing with like when you see a weight, you have to think about the fact that this is a competition and we're expecting that not to be your limit, but these are doable things for me, right? Yeah. And I would say if you can cycle 105, legitimately cycle, your 1 rep max or your ability to move 155 should be there, I would say, for a couple reps. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also, I like our comp typically has people that accidentally reach a little too high and challenge themselves. Instead of this is exactly what's going to happen. You know if you're comfortable with it or not, and you sign up or you don't.
Right.
Like you come here and then it's like, well, shit, now I have to do it. You weren't expecting it, but like now I got to try it. And most of the time people are able to do something they didn't think they were able to do. Right. So I like that aspect, but I do understand because I know some people were afraid of the weights or whatever. But again, like you said, it's a team of 4. So hopefully somebody on your team was able to move the weight, and not all 4 people were like, well, none of us can clean this weight at all, so we're not getting a score.
Nobody ended with 0 reps. Yeah.
Right. So that was part of that program as well. Nate, got anything on workout 1?
No, I mean, I think it was well programmed. There was a thought originally for me, like intermediate, maybe 15 burpees was a lot. However, seeing it play out, I think most intermediate teams handled the 15 fine. With that said, we are coming up on your guys' time limit, so we're going to kind of go through these next couple workouts. Yeah. So workout 2, 3 rope climbs. RX was to 15 feet. They had 30 GHD sit-ups, and then max wall walks with a 5-minute reset, which was in the middle of the workout. It was a 10-minute cap, and they went back through that. Intermediate was 20 GHDs with 3 rope climbs up to 12 feet, and then scaled had that 30-second dead hang with 30 ab mat slam ball sit-ups. So hot, kind of quick takes, good and the bad of that workout.
The mistake I noticed later, which was what it was, I upped the reps on the sit-ups when it was originally just the 10-minute AMRAP of it was supposed to be 1 waterfall and then max wall walks. And then looking at the reps, I was like, that's too easy. So I'm going to make it harder. And then that Sunday before, we decided we were going to do the 5-minute reset. And then we didn't change the reps back to the lesser number, which would have helped 2 sets of wall walks happened for everybody instead of a lot of the teams. When it was playing out, I was like, oh, like what's happening? I was so confused on why scale didn't get there. And then intermediate did. And I was like, okay, this is fine. Like RX will get there. And then RX didn't. And then I looked at the numbers like that night and I was like, oh, it's because we didn't reset the numbers back down when we decided to do the 5-minute re-water.
So ideally it would have been 20 GHDs for RX and 15 for intermediate.
Yeah. And I think if that would have been the case, then it would have become a lot more wall walks for everybody in both sets and not 2 or 3 people doing most of the wall walks. But the way it did play out, if you would have thought about it on the fly, reshuffling the order so that somebody with fresher shoulders could get to the wall and do more wall walks maybe, or you just have one person that's really good at wall walks and they're like, I can do that again. It's like, cool, go for it. Like you're our better wall walker. So you could take advantage of that in that workout. But I do think forcing the first waterfall to get finished at least made most people do the sit-ups and the rope climbs and like show that they have the capacity to do so. And then your people that were helping your score just had to do a little bit more to actually help out on the wall walks, which cumulative fatigue for the competition, I liked that. Like we fatigued some people's core and grip and things like that.
I'm still glad it wasn't just the 10 minutes of as
that
many
would
wall
have
walks.
been interesting. Yeah, I do. The reset was a good call. I just think we forgot to readjust the numbers back down, which I don't even think you knew that I had raised them, or I don't even know if Nate did either. But I did, and then I had it on the score sheets, which is why it was there on the score sheets. So then when it kind of came up, one was on competition score and one was on the score sheet. I was like, well, this is what the score sheet says, so that's what I'm gonna stick with because I didn't want to confuse the judges at that point and or have to reset all the score sheets. So and some teams still made all 4 people both waves, and so I think that was it. But other than that, I like the way that it played out for intermediate. And I mean, RX still got a lot of reps in, and everyone still got a rope climb. And GHDs were a surprise for a lot of people, I think. Well, we threw them out there, but you know, it showed if you did them or not. We'll just say that. Like the people that do them all the time, definitely it showed, and the people that don't
Are still
it
hunched over today.
Showed. So yeah, I'd say that about that workout.
And I actually I was nervous about the 30-second hold on the rope for scaled.
Yeah.
Because I was not sure how that would go.
It went really well.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I like that for future stuff as well because it forces some kind of skill, but it like a similarity to the RX version. So
And it's much more objective, I'd say, versus like, again, watching people do rope get-ups every time. It's like, do I credit that? Do I not? I don't know.
And I'd almost say in the future, we might need to make it a little harder as long as it's not a time crunch because, yeah, people worked, but I don't think it was hard enough for most of the skilled athletes.
I think most of them were doing the 30 seconds straight through.
Unbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll keep that in the back pocket for future. Cool. Next workout.
Third workout was so depending on your division for RX, it was 50 double unders per person, and then max dumbbell and kettlebell box step ups. The males had the 70s, while the females had the 53s. That might have been personally my favorite workout of the weekend. Just seeing everyone kind of fall apart very quickly on that.
Same. I thought originally the buy-in might be too long, but teams were repping it out. And then by like the second round, they were already, like you said, falling apart. And then it became like a strategy or really like kind of grinding one person, like, come on, pick it up, you know? So that was cool. And then the communication part, there was a lot of no reps being thrown out, which I loved by a lot of the judges. Like they were on it. Some people trying to time it right. And like someone wasn't quite locked out and they would start stepping down and it was like no reps. So then you're holding all those things for that long. You know, I think it did play out pretty much how we expected after we announced it. I know you felt a little worried about it at one point, but what did you think in the grand scheme of like how it ended?
Yeah,
What
now
did
seeing
you-
it played out, love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, originally I was like, I don't know about all this step up and like dumbbells and kettlebells, and like that's really heavy. So I'd suggested doing like a synchro devil's press, I think, or something like that. But now I'm glad that we did a box step up, especially since we ended up putting a lot more shoulders and a lot less legs for the rest of the competition as a whole.
Yeah, I will say that was where our heavy leg work, I feel like, came in, right? We didn't have heavy squats. We didn't have high capacity squats or anything like that, but those box step ups were it. And you had to have both grip strength and the ability to stand up on that box, which I think was cool. The dumbbell kettlebell mix came in just because of equipment purposes, of not having to borrow a shit ton of dumbbells from somebody, and also like probably would have had to go to multiple gyms instead of just one. And so I was in here and I was like, we could just do kettlebells and dumbbells. And we have almost everything that we need just for that. And they're basically the same weights, and the grip's slightly different. So people might be more comfortable with dumbbells or kettlebells, and they could choose. I did like the curveball of, fuck it, the girls can grab the guys' weights or the guys can grab the girls' weights, which some teams took advantage of because some of the guys were dying, more in the intermediate, I think, than the RX. But it was just, hey, there's some strong girls out there. We can handle that. And the guys were struggling, or the males maybe just needed a round off. And it was like, cool, we'll still get some score in. So I like that we just basically said, I don't care as long as all four get up on the box. And some people definitely took advantage of that. So obviously you have to have the females to be able to do that. But a lot of them can because they're used to stepping up on a 20-inch box. So.
Yeah. And again, people are used to doing box step-ups by themselves and just trying to go faster, whatever. Yeah. But, yeah, the communication piece and the synchro piece was fun to watch teams have to figure out on the fly. Because I saw a couple teams get very disheartened after one or two no reps, and they would have to set everything down, stop, reset, go again, and, like, try again. Yeah. It was
and the on the box, on the floor start, we just kind of left that up to the athletes. I had a couple people ask if they could or not, and I was like, it's up to you. Like, you know, if you're a competitor and that's what you decide is better, go for it. And then I think as the workout went on, more people started leaving them on the box, but those are also your better athletes usually, so they know those little tricks and trades of things, and it just made us not have to worry about it from a judging standpoint as well. So I like that too, that we just kind of let it up to them.
And that workout did call out some of our gym's athletes' abilities to do double unders.
Yes. And that's where I went back earlier with the double under thing. It's like, okay, yeah, you can do a handful, but like, we're not going to program 10 double unders in a workout, or 20. Like, you got to be able to do it. We maybe could have gone 60 instead of 80, but I don't know. I still feel like that might have been too little, because the people that can do them would have been doing step ups forever. Right. So yeah.
Well, I think even if we had lowered that number to 60 for some of these teams, like, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, there was a team that, at least when I looked over, they were sitting there.
Yeah.
So, and no fault to their own. Well, like, if you can't do doublers,
I thought that was interesting too, that it got to the point where it felt like it was pointless, at least from a head judging standpoint, but they were still trying. And in my head, I was like, why? Like, you're just wasting energy at this point, because you still have other things to do today, and your calves are going to be shot.
Well, the toughest ones to watch are the people who, like, started to get it towards the end, and it's like, if you could have done that from round one, or maybe we would have. After
round one, like, wait till the 3-minute interval, save your energy, and maybe you put it all together. You do get one set of box step ups, but you did 3 sets of jump roping that didn't count for anything. Now on the 4th set, it doesn't matter that you have more time. You're so tired that it's probably not going to go well. So things that could have been thought about, but obviously weren't on that. But yeah, I don't think it would have mattered score wise.
I will also say this workout did provide my favorite moment of the weekend between Taylor and Tommy. Unfortunately, Tommy started to jump off that box a little quick, had to get a no rep, and then the fire in Taylor's eyes just was incredible. And I felt so bad for Tommy, just knowing he failed that team and just how defeated he looked in that moment was definitely a highlight for me.
I will say, I'm sure Nate really enjoyed that, but I heard Taylor a couple of times in different workouts with her competitiveness come out, and I enjoyed seeing that from across the room, and the come on, let's go, and like the clapping, and I was like, ooh, they're digging in.
They're in trouble.
So yeah, that was cool.
So moving, just because most teams had finished the floater before the final workout, we'll go into that there. So kind of that odd object, strongman-ish workout, moving that yoke, sandbag, sled, and the tire flip. You want to just kind of what you thought of that one overall by the end of the week?
Loved it. And a lot of people loved it. I'm still hearing people are like, that was my favorite workout. It was so fun. But it was also hard. And I think luckily we had the heavy enough tires to make it that way. We could have made it heavier. Some people were like, oh, I wish it was heavier. But then I told them what we talked about. Like, we wanted the females to be able to touch every implement and be able to take part in that if needed, and not just make it too heavy where all the guys had to do all the work. And yeah, it kind of came down to strategy. And I told someone, like, we knew this is what we wanted to do, which I talked about at the beginning of this. We didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. So literally we just showed up and we're like, here's the 4 things. What do we want to do? And so basically how we decided is we set a 1-minute timer and just try to get 3 implements as far as we could, which wasn't the tire. And then we were like, okay, how far is that? And then we saw some telephone poles and we're like, cool, let's just mark that. Those got to go down and back. And then we're like, all right, what about this tire? Like, it's going to take longer. And originally I think we had the floater at like a 5-minute cap. And then we were like, well, we don't have as many teams, so we could do 10 minutes. And that would give time for this tire flip, because I think we set a 1 minute for me just to flip the tire, or did we do it as a team?
I think we did it as a team,
and we made it like halfway down in a minute. So we're like, oh, if we just extend the time, like this could also go all the way down and all the way back. And then we called a 4th person just to test our theory. We ran it. The intermediate, I think, weights.
Yeah, it was like RX and intermediate.
Yeah, it was like a
half
mixture,
and half,
but it was 4 guys, and we did it in under, well, we thought under 7 minutes, but really we did it under 6 minutes as 4 guys. Yeah, we're pretty proud of that. But we were individually flipping the tire, like we were keeping that moving, like we were obviously we're solid enough in it. So then we felt pretty confident that 10 minutes was good. And then I touched the RX tire the next day, and I was like, oh shit, this thing's really heavy. But we had kind of already talked about the potential of 2 people flipping the tire at the same time. So then I was like, all right, this is really heavy, but if we add that in, it still makes it movable. So really liked it. Liked that not a lot of people get to do those things a lot. And really not a lot of people have tested it, and it just becomes like, can you figure this out on the fly? Or can you figure out how to help each other? And then it was a lot of strategy, teamwork, who takes what, where do you switch, and all that stuff. And I feel like everyone had to do something, and everyone had to work pretty hard on it. And again, I think everyone had fun with it too. So it wasn't just like a dig you in the ground type of floater wad. It was a tough, along with the other 4 workouts of the day, and fun workout. So that's how I feel about it.
I mean, I really appreciate competitions that have something that is unique at some level. That's what I like typically look for. Like if I'm going to sign up for one myself, it's like, oh, that's a piece of equipment that I'm not familiar with. That's new. Or like, oh, there's a trail run, there's a swim, there's like something. The
trail run we did the one time was sticks out to me.
Like, so they're just like cool different things, which you kind of have to think about, okay, our space, our equipment, our what we have around us, how do we, what can we do to make it unique? And obviously we don't have enough yokes and tires to make it a big team comp or event, but it's like, okay, we can make it a floater, and then everybody can touch the one thing.
I think with the tire too, you're never going to be guaranteed all the tires to weigh the same. So it's really hard for that to be a team workout. Like, hey, we're going to get 4 tires and we'll have 4 lanes. Like, unless you order them straight from the facility, like fresh. And even then there might be some imbalances. So I doubt you'll see really ever like a 5-lane tire flip competition, right? It almost has to be a floater wad. But also I like that it's that old school, like when people think CrossFit, they're like, oh, tire flips and hitting it with a sledgehammer. And it's like, fuck yeah, we did it. We did tire flips in a CrossFit workout, which all these people have seen, but they probably haven't really done, especially in a long time. So I thought that was another cool piece to it as well, of like the old school tire flip thought. So yeah, liked it a lot. It's probably my favorite workout out of all of them, in the sense of like, it just being different and again, unique to kind of our space and what we can do with it.
All right. And then the final workout of the day, again, just going over the RX workout, was 125 calorie echo bike as a team. Everything was as a team, 100 chest to bars, 75 shoulder to overhead, 50 front squat, 25 bar muscle up. And then you would go back through that in a chipper style with a 20-minute cap.
I will say we wanted a long workout. We wrote it out. This was mainly your idea of, like, what if we did an individual, like, let people just kind of attack it. We wrote some numbers. It didn't seem like enough, so I made the numbers bigger. We also, we're like, okay, what? So we had the other core stuff kind of programmed, and we knew we still needed some gymnastics in there. We knew we still needed some barbell stuff. So it actually, helped us kind of complete the programming, I feel like, for the day. And then we were like, well, time-wise, what makes sense? So we were just like, 20 minutes, sure. And then we all looked at it, and I think at that time we were all like, I don't think that's finishable in 20 minutes. But it's also like, who wants to work out for longer than 20 minutes, especially at a competition? and 20 minutes is already kind of pushing the limit. So it was funny because I made the joke in the morning of like it being an AMRAP versus a for time. And then people were like asking like, well, if we finish the bike, do we just bike again? And I was like, no, it's actually for time, but like, we don't think it's finishable, you know? And the one intermediate team got the closest at 92 calories on the last bike.
Yep.
So, you know, we didn't test it. It would have been maybe good to test. Like, I don't know if we would have tested as hard as some of the teams went, so maybe we wouldn't have. But I did. This is another one I thought about later, and I was like, because the one heat of intermediate all did get back to the bike and they were all going hard. And I thought about like if we would have made it a 100, 80, 60, 40, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, I think all the teams would have made it back to the bike, and you would have seen just some blackout sprints because you don't know where any of the other teams were. And we might have ended up with more people bike sprinting more. But I still think towards the end of the day, everyone gave it their best effort and everyone was exhausted because all of those movements, like teams took advantage of who was good as what, and whatever they were good at, they were smoked on. So I think it was a good chipper to kind of finish. And I also think everyone at least made it through the halfway point. So they did touch all the things that allowed them to kind of finish the competition movement wise. So I liked that too. No one got stuck like way too early or something like that.
Yeah, because you said Claire and Joy didn't touch the rig.
Not really. I mean,
No,
Joy did
they did a couple chest to bar, like maybe between the two of them, they did 15 chest to bars out of the 200. Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to Wolf today and he was like, my forearm bicep area is just sore. He was like, I just was able to straighten my arms today. And I was like, well, you did do a lot of butterfly, but Joe and Wolf also didn't really touch the barbells. So they barely did any shoulder to overhead, and I don't even know if they squatted. They maybe did one set each of squats.
Yeah, Rob did, from what I was told, Rob did one set of squats and said, nope, and just let Joy and Claire go back at it. So.
Yeah, which those girls can move that way, right? So it was cool that it was programmed that way, and they did get to take advantage of what they were good at. And every team did that, right? A lot of people, they had a gymnastics person, they had some barbell people, and some people split it up how they could or would. But I liked it, and I liked that it was long. Someone was like, why is this at the end of the day? And I was like, well, could you imagine starting with that? And then all these other workouts you wouldn't have been able to go that hard on, right? Like if we would have ended with the clean workout, like, yeah, people wouldn't have cleaned the weight as much, and it wouldn't have been as fun or as cool. So, but with that programming wise, we did originally have front rack lunges. Then when we changed the interval workout to the box step ups, we then were like, well, we can't have lunges and step ups. So then we changed it to front squats, right? And we knew it was at a weight that like, okay, we should be able to hopefully see good squats here with get below, stand up. And now we only need 5 judges to be able to judge below parallel, not 10. And we felt like we could get 5 judges that were good enough at judging that. So I think that programming wise is where that made sense. And the other thing I'll talk about, just because we talked about with Fitness of the Coast, is yes, we did make scale do pull-ups, but again, it was you had to get through a bunch of stuff just to get to the pull-ups, and then hopefully on a team of 4, you had somebody that could handle those pull-ups, and not all 4 people that couldn't, which I think every team had at least one.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever an issue.
And so no one even talked about it, but we did have a backup plan of potential like jumping, burpee, pull up or whatever type of standard. That way we didn't have to get a bunch of measuring tapes and stuff out, which we could have tried to figure out. Or I had the thought too that day of like we could just go back to ring rows and just up the reps for scaled if needed. But no one said anything, no one complained, so we just stuck with what we had said, which I think was fine.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine doing 100 ring rows and then having to do pull-ups. But, you know, it happened. So I think all in all the workouts were good, and the programming, I think we touched every part of the body in the appropriate way, in the sense of hamstrings, quads, biceps, triceps, shoulders, core. Like, I think we hit almost all of it, and it was fun, and it was hard. So... final thoughts from anybody?
Yeah, I guess final thought really is just that last workout. To your point, seeing some of the intermediate teams really hit that final bike. It would have been nice to have more bike races at the end. That was like my only critique, though. I think the movements all paired well with each other, but just maybe making it a little bit lower so there would have been more excitement.
And I think at those numbers, the 180, 60, 40, 20, people would have actually finished. Like we would have had sub 20-minute times, and they would have had to go hard. So yeah, But at that point, again, and it's hard with teams of 4 to test those things, right? Could we have? Probably. Am I right now in a spot in my life where I just get to come to the gym whenever I want and try to grab other people to do it? Not really. Therefore, you also have to find 3 other people that can just come in whenever that also aren't competing. And to get a really good test, realistically, we should have 2 males, 2 females kind of testing it. So it just asks a lot. But I think between the 3 of us, we've seen enough workouts, done enough workouts, and programmed enough things that we could look at it and kind of had a good idea of what we were doing for the day. And I think for not testing any of them except for the floater wad, just to lock it in, the competition turned out pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with it and the way it turned out. And I like too, prize-wise, that first place is the only one that got money this year. So it was like a constant, just like go hard, try to get in first. Which with teams of 4 and to make the prize purse worth it, you kind of have to give away a good bit of money. And to give away a good bit of money to a lot of people on podiums, it's like, sorry, we don't have that. So I kind of like the way all that played out as well. And we got some good donations, and we kind of put together what I thought were some pretty decent prize packages for all the podium places and all the divisions. So I think it turned out pretty well. And I was glad to be here for it this year.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
Ryan, final thoughts on anything?
Yeah, afterwards, which we need to start giving 13 Stripes a heads up when Mayhem is, because, yeah, pretty much everybody from the comp worked their way that way. So it was cool to bounce around and hear everybody's, in the post-competition energy, just like their thoughts and like how excited they were and how much fun it was kind of thing. So I think the majority of people had a great time while pushing themselves pretty hard, which is the balance to look for, I think.
Yeah, I didn't really hear anything negative, except for the pieces of feedback that I already gave on like a couple of the workouts. And even then, they weren't the worst negative things. It was like people still got to work out. They were just like, oh, I didn't make it to the wall. And it's like, all right, cool, but like the rest of the comp was good, and your team did. So but other than that, that would be like the one piece that if I could go back, I wish I would have fixed.
Yeah.
So.
But even then, the feedback on like how it's run and the judges and things like that, people had a lot of positive things to say there. And
our volunteer crew crushed it this year. I think
sure.
this is the most we've ever asked out of our volunteers as far as judging, because we had all the synchro things and whatnot, and everyone at CFT really stepped up and like did their part. And I know there's a lot of people that were like, I don't really want to judge, but then they did it anyway, and they killed it. And I think that just goes to our community of like, we expect standards on a daily basis, and we strive for making sure that our athletes move well. And so then when they have to judge, they know exactly what they're looking for, and it's not really a questionable thing.
Yep. And
so they're able to step in and do a good job.
Yeah. Even hearing any of the like, well, that judge was really lax on this, and mine was strict, or no complaints that way, which I think again speaks a lot of the volunteers and just the standards that we push on a daily basis.
And programming wise, we tried to make sure there wasn't any crazy like there's pretty clear cut, like this is exactly what you're looking for. There wasn't really ways to like, even with like the way we set up the boxes, like you can't cut, like someone was like, what if they try to step on the corner? And it was like, there's not even room to step on the corner. Like there was like, we took a lot of this stuff just out of like the possibility of even trying to cut corners. So I think as a team of 3, we did a good job setup wise and standard wise and programming wise of like, making it pretty dry cut of like what we expect and what needs to happen. So yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah, it was good comp. Looking forward to doing it again next year. Obviously, maybe a different setup team wise. I already got some ideas flowing. I just need to write them down. But it was fun to. I feel like I took a year off, even though I still programmed last year. But to like be back in here and like running it again was fun. It was good. So cool.
All right. With that said, that has been another episode of Off the Rails, going over the 2025 Mayhem at the Mill programming. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as we continue to grow the channel here. Leave a like and a comment of what you want to see next.